I wanted to change topics slightly about why it's so crucial for L&D pros to spend time learning about how the brain functions and about how we learn, because there's one other good LinkedIn post I'll pop in the post episode email as well. But you discuss some of the benefits of creating a more intentional way of learning, like better focus, better understanding of your own cognitive efforts, building that growth mindset. It feels like understanding how the brain works links to so many of these things we hear people talking about all the time, like a growth culture, a continuous learning culture. And you also mentioned that often people don't see the correlation to the performance or ROI. So yeah, why is it, I guess maybe just break that down for us a bit, how important it is that we spend time working out how the brain works.
Can I just ask everybody, like, just make a comment on this for me right now? Because do we hear how ridiculous even asking this question is? Why should L&D people be learning about learning? Does anyone else think that's ridiculous? And yet this is the conversation. I would really love to hear what you guys think about this one. Because these are the conversations that I'm having all the time is I need to defend why, as a learning practitioner, we should be upskilling ourselves and learning who sees the problem with this. I'm just going to throw that out and everyone can just sort of put their thoughts in the chat on that one. Why though? Okay. Fundamental human, it's almost everything that we've been talking about, Gary. It's take the learning part away from it. And let's say that we're just learning about ourselves as fundamental human beings. What if I understood that when I am stressed out or I'm feeling these moments of anxiety, or I see that I have a presentation to do or a proposal and I've got the clock ticking against me, but what if I know that I'm going to emotionally react 4 times faster than I will logically act? What does that mean now to the way that I can perform and show up in my work and as a human being? Well, okay, well, that means that I'm going to get emotional quicker. Well, what can I do about it? Oh, well, I know these techniques where it be through breath work or through change of environment or through a havening technique that I can now harness that. And that to me is incredibly powerful as a fundamental human being, but then also I can get back to work. I can get back to work and be more productive. Why do I care about attention? Well, because if my attention's split, I'm not focusing. So for me to be able to have those moments of conscious awareness in, being, let's call it going meta, and in the moment go, Lauren, you're not paying attention. Like, you're supposed to be paying attention to this thing on your screen, or, you're supposed to be paying attention to the webinar that you're on right now, but you're thinking about what you want to have for lunch, or you've got a tab open because you forgot to check out your Amazon cart. And in that moment go, oh, you ain't paying attention. Then I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to stop what I'm doing, because why push myself? We talk about how we work against the brain. This is another example of how we work against it. Why push myself into a state that I'm not in yet? Give myself a chance to step away and come back and warm up again.
Yeah. This is, you made me think of 2 things there. One is something I do myself is ask myself if this is a good time. Like you say, if I'm going to be, especially if it's giving feedback, if I'm in an emotional state, I might as well wait until the next day when I'm more likely to approach it more rationally. And a couple of times I've seen people at the start of courses or learning experiences added in an exercise that's either, like you said, to do with breathing, staring at a spot, to try and prime the brain. So those are quite small things that could actually have a big impact. Like if I just put at the start of a survey, because actually we had a survey last week when I was in a bad mood get sent out, and I was like, you know what, answer tomorrow or else I won't be rational about it. So those are little small things I guess maybe people could do, isn't it? Just preface this piece of learning with an exercise that helps you prime the brain. Or if it is a survey, just put a note at the start, if this is if you feel like you'll answer this better later, then do it later. This is the deadline, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, even in the series, the series that I created, it has those moments in there. And I think at one point I'm like, if you don't feel like doing this anymore, if you've had enough, step away, go away. When was the last time you did an online learning and someone was like, go away, go have a drink, or go take a nap? It's giving people permission, but it's also cultivating the skill at the same time. Because I think what the biggest challenge is when it comes to getting learning sciences and brain sciences not only into our organizations but into our educational systems is that because our behaviors and our habits are so strong because they've been cultivated over decades and centuries worth of an educational system that really has maintained the steady course for hundreds of years. And that's how we were all brought up for the most part in our learning. So all of those habits and behaviors are incredibly strong. And if this gives you any context of how much further we still have to go, I can't mention who, but I can say from where I had the very random honor of meeting an astronaut, like a real one, a NASA one, like very, very cool. Like my nerd dream just came true. And I was dying to know. I'm like, astronauts have to go through an exceptional amount of training, and they learn ridiculous amounts under crazy conditions, and not in a long period of time too. And I was dying to know, I'm like, what were your learning strategies? A NASA astronaut. And in front of an auditorium full of people, she's like, well, I read and I highlight and I make notes. And I just turned to the colleague beside me. I go, did she just say in front of a room, did a NASA astronaut just, I'm like, wow. Oh my God. And I found her afterwards. I said, hey, is that your real answer? Were you just trying to be like nice and conservative? She's like, no, that was my real answer. And I was like, we should talk. We should talk.
It's the never meet your heroes thing, isn't it? Like
It
you're
was
excited to meet.
crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, you meet someone from NASA and you're like, do I give up now? Is there no hope? Or do we realize that like we've got a lot to do? But I think that I want to hope, and maybe everyone can sort of either confirm my belief that we are looking at a stronger wave of momentum. I think people are starting to take these things a lot more seriously.
Yeah. No,
I
I
mean, we're
agree.
having this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing our part. There was one thing I wanted to ask you about there. Actually, you mentioned about permission. Like, if I've done courses before where it's like 10 modules, and 4 modules in, I've learned the thing I needed to learn, and yet I finished the other 6 out of some sort of obligation. And it made me think that actually the same thing's probably happening in companies where people just need that permission to say, like, once you've learned the thing you needed to learn from this, just check out of it, because your attention is limited. If you spend an extra half an hour on this and gain nothing from it, then nobody wins. Like, the productivity isn't there. You could spend that time somewhere else. Doesn't make you think that learning is as useful as it could be in my company, because half of the session was useless and I learned what I needed in the first 20 minutes. So is that also like a tip that people could just apply, is just give people permission to check out of a learning experience if the time's not right or they've learned what they needed to?
I will say only once they have cultivated the skill of metacognitive ability, so that they don't leave there thinking, I know it, and then try to transfer it and be like, oh, I didn't know it. Because that's part of the theory as well, right? We definitely get overconfident in our abilities, or we either get overconfident or we doubt. So if we don't have the means to test ourselves and the methodologies to check in on that before we're like go to work or try something, and think about, like, there's very critical environments that you cannot mess around in. I once did a design for a distribution warehouse center for I guess was it TK Maxx in the UK? It's like TJ Maxx. I don't know. It's like it's all sorts of Maxes all over the world. And those are really intimidating environments because they're like football fields long. And you've got all sorts of things happening. You've got production lines going, you've got trucks coming in and out, you've got, like, it's really going quite quickly. Now, I would want someone to feel confident that they had learned what they needed to learn before they get out onto that floor and potentially could get really damaged as a human being. Like, you get hurt in those environments. So I would say, if you are consciously aware and can test yourself and know to test yourself before you check out entirely, then absolutely, I would say, why, if you know it, move on.